I'm going to show you how you can set up DNS Aging and Scavenging on Windows Server. So to start, I'm logged onto my primary DNS server, which is my domain controller, and in Server Manager, we'll come to Tools and then DNS. Within the DNS Manager, the first thing you'll want to do is press View and then tick Advanced, just so we've got the advanced options available. Then if you drill down to the zone that you want to enable the aging and scavenging for, you can right click and go to Properties, and then under Set Aging and Scavenging Properties, click Aging, and then now we can set our scavenging policy. So we need to enable scavenging of stale resources, and then we need to set a no refresh interval and a refresh interval. Now to work this out, the best thing to do is open up your DHCP server. Within your DHCP server, navigate to your scope, right click the scope and come to Properties, and then identify what your DHCP lease is currently set to. Mine is set to 8 days, so we'll use this to calculate the refresh interval. So if we close this now, what we'll do is we'll take that 8 days of lease duration and we'll halve it and set each to 4 days. So if your DHCP leases last for 14 days, you can leave these as 7 days. If you've got a 28-day lease duration, you can set these to 14 days each. The best thing to do is just halve the lease duration and set that as the refresh interval. So the way this works is that the no refresh interval won't update the timestamps for the first 4 days of the lease. And that is fine because when a client is given a DHCP lease, it doesn't check in again until the lease duration has half expired. So if it gets an 8-day lease, it won't check in again for 4 days. And then the remaining 4 days of the lease, it will keep trying to check in. We'll then press OK. And now we've got our aging policy set up on our zone that we want to scavenge. We can just press OK. And now we need to actually set up the DNS scavenging. So if we right click our server and go to Properties, under Advanced we can tick Enable Automatic Scavenging of Stale Records. By default it will run once every 7 days. This is fine. If you want, you can drop it down to run once a day, every 5 days, every 14 days, however many days you want. I'm just going to leave this as do it once a week, so it will scavenge any old records once per week. Now, how does it actually identify what is an old or a stale record? So you may notice if you come to your lookup zone, they've all got a timestamp, and some say static and some have a date. So the way it works is if it is static, it is because it is a static IP address. And if it has a timestamp, it is because it's generally been issued by DHCP. Now you can change these. So there's an option for delete this record when it becomes stale, and you can either untick that and that'll set it to static if we refresh. So then now we've set this one to a static so it won't expire. So any records with a timestamp that is greater than our 8 days that we set, which is the 4 days and the 4 days, if it still hasn't renewed its lease within this 8 days, it will then be set to be scavenged. And then the next time the scavenging policy runs, which is once every 7 days, if it has expired, it will then remove any of those records. So that is how to set up a DNS aging and scavenging policy on Windows Server.